All right, guys, welcome to another episode of Lions Guy Podcast. And on today's episode, we have Mr. Mike Malatesta, right? Did I get it right, Mike?
Nice, you did it.
Nice, got it. Yeah, all right. He is the host of How Did It Happen podcast. He's an entrepreneur, which we're going to dive a lot into today. He's an advisor and a new author, right? This is your first book, Mike?
That's right. Yeah, it
Yeah,
just came
awesome.
out.
Yeah. Author of Ownership, How Getting Selfish Got Me Unstuck. So, Mike, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Dale. It's a pleasure to be here. And I thank Craig Stanley for putting the two of us together. It's a great connection.
Oh yeah, I love Craig. Man, he's got a great story, great episode on the Lions Guy podcast when he came on, and yeah, I like Craig a lot. So real quick, tell us who you are and what you do.
Sure. So I've been, I'll give you the career part. And if you want to get into the other stuff, just let me know. But I've been an entrepreneur since I was 26. And I was really an accidental entrepreneur. Although I feel like, going back to when I was 4 years old, I lived across the street from a construction company. My parents did, and in the afternoons I would sit on the curb out in front of our house, and I would watch the guys bring back their trucks, and I just really fell in love with trucks and the name on the side of the truck and the noise and the diesel fuel, diesel exhaust smell and the dust and everything. I just would sit there and just take it all in, and I think there may have been a seed planted in me at on that curb, Dale, but life happens, and I go to school, and when I was in college, I nobody in my fraternity or the people I was hanging out with were talking about owning a business or being an entrepreneur. I don't even know if I knew the word then. It was all about getting a job, getting a career. And so um, between my junior and senior year in college, I got a job driving a garbage truck, which was a wonderful summer job. And I had no idea that it would lead to me having an interest in the waste industry, but it did. And I got started in the waste industry as a management trainee, and uh, I moved around a bunch of times in a 5 year period. And I thought, oh my gosh, I was moving up. I thought, well, maybe someday, I could be the CEO of this company, and that didn't turn out. That didn't work out. Instead, I got fired when I was 26, and so I became an entrepreneur kind of accidentally because I needed a job. I didn't know what else to do. I had this sort of very, very vague recollection of this, and this love of trucks. Um, but then a fella came along that I had worked with a little bit, and he said, "Hey, I don't know what you're planning to do, but if you want to start a business, I would love to be a partner with you." And I thought,
Mm.
what? you know, where is that coming from? I'm just this guy who you barely know, who was only working with you for a year or so and ends up getting walked out the door. Like, why would you come, you know, knocking on my door after that? And, um, but he did. And interestingly, Butch, his name was Butch, and he'd been a farmer most of his life. Farming is what he loved to do, but he had lost, his family had lost the family farm. And, so he ended up working at this place where I was. And I always think to myself, well, this guy came along and he knew just how to, fertilize that little dormant seed that had been planted in me when I was 4. And so we started, just to make a living, Dale. And fortunately, over the course of 22 years with my first business, we we just you know kept growing slowly and surely, and kept dealing our way through the problems and trying to do our best with the opportunities, um, and ultimately I sold that business in 2015. So it was a long run from 1992 to 2000, or yeah, 1992 to 2015, and it was a good outcome for everybody. And then later, I was able to start another similar business with a private equity partner this time, and we we had that business for 3 years. And a couple of months ago, we had the opportunity to sell that for a good outcome for everyone, and we did that. And so that's sort of my entrepreneurial career. And along the way, I picked up podcasting and picked up the desire to write a book and some other things, and that's led me to you today.
Yeah, that's a full boat, man. And like I was telling you in the green room before we got started, book just came out as of this recording, so I'm just getting into it. But I fall in love with it already. It was like right away one of these books. Like I didn't want to put it down because you're taking us on a journey, like right out of the gate. It's like starting with when you're at 4 and watching the trucks and you feel it, and it was great. So even getting started on it this morning, I was like, man, I didn't want to put it down. I was like, but I got crap to do. So I'm looking forward to getting back through it, and I'm gonna let you spoil it for me throughout today. But you know, when you were what were you going to college for? If not to start a business, what were you thinking you were going to do after college, or did you know?
No idea. I I went to college because you're supposed to go to college. At least my parents never went to college. My older sister went to college. She was the first one, and it was like it's kind of expected. And I didn't know what I like. Here's the story. I didn't know what I wanted to do, and so after a semester, Dale, I dropped out for the second semester because I'd been working at the parish cemetery in the summers um, the whole time, except that summer I worked, for the trash company, and we were digging graves and cutting grass and you know lowering people into the ground and all of those things, setting up for funerals, taking them down, and I had it's like I had some money in my pocket, and all I was thinking about was, man, I don't really need this school thing. I just need some money in my pocket. And so I dropped out to work at the cemetery, which sounds crazy now, but um and I just got really lucky. Well, I should say the foreman at the cemetery was a guy that I thought was like kind of walked on water, neighborhood guy. He had the job as the foreman at the cemetery, and he was just funny, and he was, always telling us about his bar stories and his women's stories and all that. It's just a fun guy to be around when you're still a teenager. Or,
Yeah.
yeah, I was still a teenager, right? So I did that, and then fortunately for me, I didn't find it fortunate at the time, but fortunately for me, at the end of the semester, I worked through the summer, and the person who ran the cemetery said, "Hey, we don't have a full time position for the fall, so I suggest you go back to school." And so that's what I did, but still had no idea what I wanted to do. I I joined a fraternity when I got back. And then I got all wrapped up in doing all of the like Animal House type stuff, Dale, that has nothing to do with going to school, but it's pretty fun when you're in a fraternity. And I was just, getting fat, drunk, and stupid. And uh, there
Was
comes a
that because you
time,
just did? Is that why? Right? Like to go back to the question I
yeah,
asked, like what were you going to school for?
yeah,
Was a part of that you didn't really have a clear vision for it,
I
so you
didn't,
just kind of went with
yeah,
the yeah.
exactly, yeah. So thank you for getting me back to your question. Yes, I didn't know. And when the time came, I think it's second semester, sophomore year, when you have to pick a major, I picked English because I did enjoy reading. I could write a little bit, and I thought, how hard can this be? And so I, I graduated with an English degree, having no desire to teach or do some of the other things that people assume you're going to do when you get an English major. But in retrospect, I did sort of turn my thing around. I got serious about school when I was a junior. I graduated on time. Um, I I'm very thankful that I chose the English major because I feel like what it did was it gave me a real ability um, to think and to communicate effectively, and um, that's not something that I see in tremendous volume these days. A lot of people can get by, but when they're asked to articulate or communicate an idea or a vision or whatever, they struggle with it. I guess I struggle less with that than a lot of others do.
Yeah, I can relate to that. Even and I'll go back to your book that I was feeling that right away. And what I love, I mean, I'm an everyday reader. I read probably 40, 60 books a year depending on how long. And what I get what I get out of books is the articulation of stuff that's in my head sometimes. Like I love learning new things, but I also enjoy seeing some affirmations of how I feel or things I've experienced or whatever put into words and having been articulated. I do enjoy that. And that's what I was telling you earlier, kind of appreciated right out of the gate of your book, just, cause you're real honest in it about like the, I'll say despair, but like, the adversity of business and
Yeah.
failing and success. So like I could feel that right away. And even the way you worded a couple things in there just really they just sing, so like I say, it's already a joy just getting started.
Well, thank you for that. And from someone who reads as much as you do, that's high praise. I'm very grateful. Thank you. I hope that continues as you make your way through the book. I hope I didn't come out really strong and then be like, psh, right off a
Yeah.
cliff.
So when Butch approached you about starting your own business, like why did you go with it? Like why did you end up starting your own business? And maybe was it because of the reason you got fired? Like what's a little bit of the depth there?
Well, the why did we start? Because after consideration and getting to know him a little bit better as we were talking through things, it was the very best option available to me. Had no network, none much to speak of, because I'd only lived in I still live in Wisconsin, and this was in the Milwaukee, Wisconsin area. I'd only been here about a year before I was let go, and so I had a very small network. It's like super small, and but I knew one thing I knew about myself at the time, and he gave me the confidence to really accept that I knew this, was that I if I committed to something, I didn't think I could fail. Like I didn't think I could fail at the job that I had. I thought I was doing a great job, and I think I was largely. I was just so when he gave me that little bit of confidence after I was just really ashamed and just unsure what to do and having very few options, it was one of those things where I was like, well, um, so all we have to do is hand over all of our money that we have, and then live with very modest pay, hopefully, for an undisclosed unknown period of time, and just do whatever needs to be done in order for us to make it a success. And those were things that I could be okay with, and that's what I did.
And what were some of your big challenges in getting started, right? So you weren't going to school for this. This was kind of dropped on you to a degree. I'm sure there was definitely more thought into it other than, hey, let's LLC and get going. But
Right.
what were some of these challenges that you ran into getting started that maybe you didn't see coming, or just you know getting a business started?
Yeah, well, I didn't know how to start a business, obviously. I had some experience where I had been working, because I'd been moving around to different divisions and I'd been exposed to different parts of the business. So I'd been uh, operations and accounting, and a little bit of sales and safety and some other things. So I had like touched things. So
Mm.
I had some awareness of the things that we would need to do, but I had never, pitched a bank, and I had never written a business plan, and I had never done any of that. So I went to um, this thing that the SBA puts on. It's called SCORE. I don't know if you've ever heard
Yeah.
of it, but it's
Yeah.
it's basically senior executives who volunteer their time to help, um, people like me, um, do those types of things, like put a business plan together, put a pro forma together, understand what you need to do to attract funding and those kinds of things. And that was very helpful. So I did that, and that sort of gave me the more confidence and more structure to put something together. And what was interesting was I was kind of on my own, me and my wife, really, during this time, because Butch, had to keep working. He was married, had 4 kids, had a house. I didn't have any. I was married, had a dog. And that was it. So he had to keep doing that. So it was kind of on me to do all the stuff we needed to get it started, get it off the ground. Um, And once I had that help from SCORE, I just, number one, I had to get funding, and so I put on the only suit that I had, and I went calling on banks in my neighborhood, um, and I pitched them on the idea. And for whatever reason, one of them, I think I went to five, which doesn't sound like a lot these days, but there were very few banks back then. It was but I think I went to five, and four I never heard from, and one called me back and said yes. But they said yes, but you have to give $25,000 more equity into this, or we can't do it. Well, neither of us had that, so had to figure out how to get it, and that's had never thought about having additional partners, Dale. But we needed additional partners or some other way to get the money, and so I went and talked to the only person that I knew who I thought might have that kind of money, and his name was Chuck Kohlberg, and I ended up meeting with Chuck. Met with him a couple times with some of his buddies, and they kind of put together a group of he and another who decided to split it and got us the money. And that was, so we had four partners then instead of two, or I had three partners instead of one. But I didn't care because I needed that. That was just another thing that I had to adapt to or shift to, and we were able to get that going. And then so getting it off the ground or actually starting, I'd say my struggle probably wasn't any harder or worse than anybody else's. Now, keeping it going, we definitely had our share of, uh, problems, challenges doing that. But getting it started, that's what I remember as being, the experience.
What would you tell someone today that's starting a business or thinking about starting a business as it relates to partners, right? Because I've talked to young entrepreneurs and they talk about, oh, well, I'm going to ask Chuck to be my partner. And I start to ask a lot of questions around that. But what's some of your things you've learned, or if you were talking to a young entrepreneur who was saying, hey, I'm going to go get a partner or whatever, like what are some things that you learned, right? Because you had a vision to have Butch as your partner. Now you've got a third partner. What were some of the things that you learned there with regard to starting a business and what partners mean to a business?
Well, I'll say first that I fell into a tremendously fortunate situation with my partners, Dale, because we lasted together almost 20 years, even though Chuck and Larry were 15 years or so older than me. So, investing in a business and then sticking around for that long as a partner is not something you see all that often. So we had a great experience, but I've, in my other adventures, I've seen lots of partnerships that haven't gone as well or as long as ours. And I find that, so for me, if you're going to, like when you listen to, if you try to get like venture capital funding or whatever, for example, they always want you to have a co-founder, right? Somebody else that comes along, and they're basically hedging their bets on that, right? If you burn out or something, we got somebody else that we can. But for me, in my experience, I would say that you cannot rush into a partnership decision, and gosh, don't rush into a 50-50 partnership decision. When you're two buddies or two friends or two acquaintances, really good acquaintances, and you're like Butch and I put our business plan together essentially at his kitchen table, while we were drinking, Miller High Lifes. What, so everything sounds good.
Champagne, a beer.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Everything sounds good when you're having those conversations, but it's not unusual for that to be the best times you ever had together, is those conversations. And so I'd just be really, really careful that you don't just like somebody, but that you know them. One, that you guys, you have complementary skill sets, for example. That one person is going to be in charge, not two people in charge. and you have some idea of how this person actually works. You're not just friends with them. You know how they work, and you know how they work under stressful situations. If you can get to that and you decide that the partnership is makes sense, I'd say do it, because you'll probably get more benefit out of it than you would going it alone. But not 50-50. 50-50, just like I said, somebody has to be in charge, somebody has to make the decisions. And when you're 50-50, I can almost guarantee at some point one of you is going to feel like you're doing more than 50. And as soon as that one person feels like they're doing more than 50, your partnership's in trouble.
Yeah. Yeah. No. And
You agree with that, or what's your
I
take?
do. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I always like to say it's like a marriage, right? I
Yeah.
mean, you don't get married after the first date, and hopefully you're marrying for the right reasons, right? And I feel like a partnership in business is very much the same. And it's very much a legal contract, just like a marriage is to a lot of
Yeah.
degrees, right? Because, if you fast forward, and I guess this is the part too that young entrepreneurs don't want to think about, which is if it doesn't work out, if things aren't going the way you're planning or hoping they will, well, just like a marriage, that there's going to be a divorce, and you got to figure out, so that's why I give it that level of severity, because I think a lot of it has to do with courage, and fear of going out on your own and stuff like that, with folks today who have great ideas, and they go, and I'm going to ask Joe to be my partner. And I go, well, who's Joe? And well, he's my friend from whatever. And I've been talking to him about this. I'm like, well, this
Mm-hmm.
is his idea too. Well, no, I've just been telling him. And and I feel that's like a fear of going it alone. And I always remind folks that kind of like I hear that over the years. I go, look, you may need a partner, you may not, and you may need to ask yourself, do you need a partner or do you need resources? And maybe you're looking for resources, and you're looking for a partner to subsidize your courage in doing this alone, or whatever the case may be. So, there's a lot to it, and I bring it up because I wanted your perspective to just put it out there, because I think that's just low hanging fruit for people to like coddle their fears a little bit sometimes.
Yeah.
I think there's partnerships for right reasons, and I think there's partnerships for wrong reasons.
That's a good point. I mean, fear is definitely there, right? If I have someone else, then the likelihood we're going to be successful is higher. Um, the thought behind that is, if I screw up, they'll be there to fix it. Well, that's not always, that's not always there. So good point. So to me is, I'd be like very, very careful with a partner. One, on the 50-50 thing. Two, on, do you have complementary skill sets where you're not going to be built, butting heads on the same types of things? And then three, do you actually need a partner, or do you need an advisor?
Mm.
Do you need someone that can help you, mentor you or something when you need it? Because advisors are a lot cheaper than partners, and really easy to disconnect from if things go sideways.
Yes, exactly. And that's it. So it's just because I think, and that's the other thing too, when you're young and entrepreneurial, and you talk a lot about this in your book too, like you don't think you can fail. You see the end, you're going for it, and you're just
Mm-hmm.
not thinking about, well, if this goes wrong. And I've had a lot of partners along the way. I learned a lot about this area, and I too found myself very fortunate. And look, we were married, and we were a comedy of, we were a motley crew of sorts as well. And not to say that we didn't have our spats and all that, but I bring this part up to affirm what you're saying. We had complementary skills, right? When I
Yeah.
picked up my partners, I did a merger of equals of a firm in New York. So it went from two partners, me and my Marine Corps buddy, and we picked up this firm in New York who was the president. They were also, one was president, one was out managing accounts and everything, and we all came together, and we knew what our respective hats were, and we would give counsel to the others, but we always respected who was wearing what hats, right? Like we were all experienced, and we had our own ideas and thoughts, but even though Larry, who became my CFO but was the president of the firm
Mm-hmm.
that we acquired in New York, he brought a ton of value. He was 10 years in business longer than I, so I got a lot from him in that advisory role. And even in this depth of experience, I'll say Larry, even when he disagreed with maybe a way I was going, he would always go, Dale, you're the CEO. So if you decide we're going to go this way, I know it's not the way I feel, but hey, it's your decision. That was all the way up to our exit. We were just talking about this the other day, and he reminded me of that, and kind of like the final decisions of choosing our partners and stuff. And I guess that's a big part of it is having that mutual respect of, like you said, those complementary roles, and respecting the others and hold them account, and letting them be accountable and
Right,
responsible.
right, right.
Yeah.
And when you had those sort of disagreements on direction and he said, well, you're the CEO, so whatever you decide, we're going to go, was he also supportive of the decision after that? Because I feel like that's super important too, because if you just say, if your partner just says, well, you're in charge, I guess we're going to do what you're going to do, well, they're very, they're not definitely not bought into that, and that's a problem.
Yeah, no. And I think, because what you're talking about, I came to learn later in my career beyond these partners, were like that gotcha culture, right? Where it's like,
Yeah, okay.
hey, I told you so, and now you're wrong, and I gotcha. And those types of leaders, I'm wiser now for it, but I don't appreciate those folks that you're
Yeah,
saying, like, yeah, you're the CEO, I don't agree with you, and then boom, I got you, I told you, and they're
okay, yeah.
constantly undermining you, right? Like those guys, man, keep them away from me.
Right, right. Because there's a certain maturity that comes with being a partner too.
Sure, yeah.
And second guessing a decision that you uh, didn't make and had no stake in executing, is kind of immature, right? So maturity is a big thing too, I think. Yeah.
Well, I love that, and because it's the part about the stake in executing, right? It's easy to be that backseat driver and say you should be doing this, you should be doing that,
Mm-hmm.
but the ease is because you're not accountable for the results, right? And
Yeah.
I just know that for the 20 years of being CEO, that there was always that. But early on, I had grown strength to point that out. Say, hey, it's easy for you to say that we should do that, but if that doesn't work, it's going to fall on me. But
Yeah.
I would say, as a leader, that also goes both ways. If you're the leader and you're working on a subordinate, and this is where I would also catch myself in micromanagement and say, hey, who am I to tell a direct report what to do as an opposing idea, and then it not work out? Because you know what I mean? I think that goes both ways, from receiving counsel and giving counsel.
Yeah.
Um, you know,
Yeah. Good point. Yeah. For a really good point.
and as far as leadership's concerned, like how did you evolve, as a leader, starting a business and operating it and growing it?
Well, at the beginning, I think I had what it took, Dale. So I was all in, first of all, not just money wise, but I was just all in. All of me was invested in this business. And I think the same was true for Butch. So I had that. And at the beginning, when it was just the two of us, and it was just the two of us for maybe 6 months or so, uh, we didn't need much more leadership than that. But as people started to come along, I think I was built really well just naturally for startup leadership because like I said, I was all in. I was very helpful. I was very committed. I wanted everyone to succeed, and I was there to help them succeed, um, both from a client standpoint and a team member standpoint. And I think that did that worked for me well for the first 5 years or so, and then it didn't occur to me that I needed to change. And so I kept doing things the same way. And we were getting, bigger and bigger over time, consistently, not huge, but bigger and bigger. And I was still, the things that used to give me a lot of energy, the way I was leading, were starting to grind on me. And I was starting to resent some of them, and I was starting to get frustrated by some of them. Like, for instance, I was always there to take care of things. I put everybody else first, and that's what was needed, I think, and that's what worked for me. But then over time, I started to think, well, why isn't anybody stepping up? Why isn't why do I have to do, all of these things? And I didn't realized that the reason was that I wasn't asking them to. All they were doing was what I, had shown them was the way, And who's gonna just, if they think it's going the way I want it to, who's gonna raise their hand and go, hey, maybe we should do this different, or I should be able to do this for you, or whatever. You kind of have to ask people to do that, most people, in order for them to go, oh, sure, yeah, I'll do it. Um, so about 10 years into the business, Butch passed away in a fire that happened at one of our plants where he was badly burned. And then a couple of days later, he died. And I, that was really a bad spot for me. But in addition to his death and some of the other things that had happened along the way, and this way that I was thinking I should lead, it kind of all just, fell on me. And I just fell into this place I call the valley of uncertainty. I just sort of fell off a cliff down it. And it was clear. I didn't realize it at the time, but looking back on it now, it was clear that my leadership, the way I was conducting myself, the way I thought I was doing what needed to be done for the business was not right. It wasn't right for me, wasn't right for, our team members, wasn't right for the business at all. I was still treating the business like it was an infant, like it needed me for everything, and it didn't
Mhm.
need that. But that's how that had worked for me, So just wanted to keep doing it. Um, so that I began to evolve as a different kind of leader after I figured out a way to get out of that valley. Um, but that's how I was. That's how I was for a long time.
There's another great book. Have you ever heard of Michael Gerber's The E Myth?
I believe I have it behind me.
Oh, do you
Yes.
really? That's a great. But are you? So if you're familiar with it,
Yeah,
I
the
believe it was
baker.
his
Yeah,
book that, yeah, the Baker story and all that. I think it was
great.
his book was the concept of the founder's cap. Are you saying that it was the founder's cap for you? Like you were trying to do everything, but the business was kind of capped on the fact that you're trying to do everything now, and it's still limited by the capacity of your two hands.
Exactly. So I was we got this problem or this situation going on. I just got to work harder. I just got to work more. I can figure this out. I just got to nose to the grindstone, man. Just do it, do it, do it. And I love that book. I don't know exactly when I read that book, but I think it was in this valley time.
Really?
Um, yeah, and that book's about putting system and process into your business essentially, so that you don't have to be in it all the time, because you can't be in it all the time and grow the business, right? I was just like the baker, just like the baker.
The yeah, there's a lot, just a lot of powerful, and I guess the other thing, because we're on the entrepreneurial story a bit, like the other valuable lesson out of that book, and I encourage anyone who's thinking about getting into business. But you know how we start businesses because we're like that technician, right? It's like, oh, I could do this better than
Yeah,
my boss, or he's making all the money and it's all my work or whatever. But the other big lesson I remember, because I agree, I don't remember when I read this book, but it's been a long time ago. And but the other thing I really appreciated out of it was that once you decide to start a business, that that tradesman role or technical role, whatever you're going to go do, almost becomes secondary, because the minute you start a business, you're primarily a business owner. And secondarily, maybe the technician, right? And
yeah.
because I see this today where a lot of folks just want to build the widget, swing that hammer, whatever the trade is, and they make the business ownership kind of secondary. They almost avoid it because they don't know they don't know enough about it and whatever. It's a really great book. It's got a lot of I think tried and true lessons in entrepreneurship.
I I, I agree with you, and I'll share a story. It's about 2.5 years ago, we built a house, and if you want to see the E Myth in action every day, just deal with have an experience dealing with the various trades in construction. These are very
Mhm.
talented people generally, but they almost all of them started the business exactly for the exact reason you just said, right? The boss is making all the money, I'm doing all the work. Why don't I just start my own business? And they do it, and they still do good work, and everything else just goes to shit. Like communication, total shit. Like
Yep.
coming up on time, total crap. Just doing what I saying what I do, doing what I said I would do. Not always, and
Yeah.
just all of because they are dealing with the complexity that comes with owning a business, and it gets in the
Hmm.
way of their technician ability, right? But they just keep going like that because they figure, well, and ultimately they create a job for themselves and they call themselves a boss, which is great. I just wish they would take it the next step
Yeah.
and just read that book, or look at someone who's built a big business and say, well, geez, that's what I should be focused on, not how many hours can I bill on the job today, and then hopefully I don't make my other customers so mad because I told them I would come and I don't show up or call.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm in that same space. I've done a lot of construction renovation stuff for the last 10 years in my hometown. And there's that. And every time I meet one that goes, yeah, I'm going out on my own or whatever, I go, do you want to have a great business one day? Because you kind of ask questions on why
Yeah.
they want to start their business. And I said, man, can I give you some advice? Yes, definitely. Like, communicate, over communicate, just communicate. And the more you communicate and get organized, the better. Like, and I kind of go, and I go, hey, go read the E-Myth because it's talking about you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm smiling when you were saying,
Yeah.
when you said I build a house and just start working with the tradesmen. I was like, oh, I know where this is going. But because I live it, man. And I try to tell these guys, you got to. I give them a little 2-minute drill, that very lesson, like, hey, I know you're a carpenter, but you're a business owner now, and that's got to come first. And a lot of them think, back to the founders cap stuff, that they're the only ones that can do it.
Yeah.
I'm the only one who
Sure.
can do it right. Like, that's such a lie that you got to grow out of. That it's just a lie you're telling yourself, man. Like, there's a
Yeah.
control element there. There's a fear element that it's not going to be right, and you're going to have to go do it again anyway. There's just a lot of untruths in that thought that you got to really break through.
And there's, so as you're saying that, I'm thinking to myself, okay, yeah. So you're telling me basically that you want to stay exactly where you are right now because you're not willing to invest any of your time or any of your energy into someone else. Because of course it's going to take time to train somebody. The payoff comes after they're trained, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you invest a little in someone now and you reap a lot later. Or you invest nothing in anyone now and you reap nothing later. And hopefully you stay healthy and you don't get hurt and you don't do all these other things that takes you out of the workforce for a period of time. See, there's just this just like your thing is right. Read the book, read the E-Myth, read the E-Myth before you swing a hammer. Read the E-Myth,
Yeah, true. Before you
right?
quit your job, for
Right.
sure.
Yeah.
For sure. So when talk to me about, like, and I guess another aspect of starting your own business is, did you have an exit plan? Like, so you had the one company, what the exit came about, how did the exit come about? Did you have an exit plan?
So when I first started the business, I thought to myself, this was not in the business plan, but I thought to myself, because I was very cocky, I guess, after Butch gave me that confidence, I sort of multiplied it in my head. I thought, well, we could probably, in 5 years, make this a $50 million business and sell it. Well, reality hit me in the face on that one. And I talk about that in the beginning of my book, these stories about these entrepreneurs who they lock themselves in a room and they're coding and they're drinking Red Bull and pizza, and like a couple years later they're selling for $1 billion. Well, those stories get a lot of attention, and I think they may happen, but they're so rare, so exceptionally rare, that if you think that's going to be you, yeah, it's not. It's not going to be you.
I've heard guys call that entrepreneur porn, right? Yeah, they're
Yeah, yeah,
like,
yeah. Good point. Yeah, yeah. So I had that thought in my head. It never made it into the business plan, and thankfully, and it never became reality either. So 5 years in, we were probably maybe a $5 million company. So I was 10x short on that. Um, but we had looked at, so along the way in like 2008 or so, we had looked at a private equity transaction to bring new capital into the business and take, particularly from my older partners, to take some money out of the business. And when I looked at that, and I was the one who initiated that because I was interested in it, I thought it might be a good way for us to, be less capital constrained because we never had outside investment besides the shareholders. We were just bank funded. And I thought, wow, maybe it'd be cool to have outside funding and all these things. And we went through all these pitches and management presentations and had an investment banker. And ultimately, Dale, the deal was, I said, I'm all in on this. I want to roll over everything. And then when the proposals came back, I was like, wait a second, dummy. So now you're going to take on a partner you don't know, and they're going to come in and maybe you still have majority control, barely. And as soon as you need another tranche of money, that's going to go away because that's the way these things work, unless you can put in your pro rata share, which I wouldn't be able to do because I didn't take anything,
Right.
So, so I scrapped that idea after, and fortunately my partners were okay with it because they could have said, no, we think we should do this. And then fast forward, another like 8 years, and I ended up having the opportunity to buy out my older partners, which I did with bank debt and a note to them. And I was like, well, I'm 100% owner of this business. I've never been 100% owner of this business. It felt amazing. And I was very happy with it, except that I couldn't grow the business. I couldn't make any acquisitions. I couldn't do a lot of investment in equipment because, really almost all of our free cash flow was going towards paying off the loans. Yeah. And then unexpectedly, to answer your question, this group approached me about buying the business, and I hadn't been looking at that at all, and I wasn't interested when they first came and talked to me. But then I thought to myself, well, I am constrained this way. The company wanted to buy our company and make it a platform for a new division that they were starting. So I thought, wow, great opportunity for the people on our team. Certainly more opportunity, I thought, than if they just sort of stuck with me and waited for me to, pay this debt off and get back to growing the business in a meaningful way. And it was an opportune time because we didn't have any, big problems. Like nobody was suing us. We didn't have any public relations issues. We were just in a good spot, Dale. And so um, I went back to talk to my wife and and basically, put together what I thought would be, what we would need in order to do this. And I knew I could validate that, or I thought I could. And they said okay, and that's what happened. Now I made
And this
mistakes
is
doing that, and we
is
can
this
get into that. But
2008?
no, I'm sorry. This is about 8 years after that. So not quite 8 years after. So this is a 2014.
So this is so this is getting to
6
that
years, right?
2015
Yeah,
exit timeframe. Okay.
that's correct. Yeah.
So
So from that first time, where we looked at the private equity infusion, we just scrapped all that, stayed with the bank, and just continued to grow the business.
and that is a question I have for you. What did you learn, right? What did you learn through that process of exiting or selling and that you were saying.
Yeah. Well, I don't regret it. So I see I see so many entrepreneurs, they get to a point and they decide they're going to sell their business and they're unhappy with either the way the new company is running the business, or they're unhappy with the way the negotiations went, or they're unhappy about something. I, and maybe there's reasons for that. I'm not judging, how they feel, but I made a decision that once I decided to sell the business, once they paid me for the business was theirs. And my only job after that was to help them achieve their goals, because their goals are probably going to be different, um, than mine. And I had a good process with the company that bought us. Um, but I think one of the mistakes that I made, and this gets back to what I was talking about, how I led the business early, and I didn't learn this mistake, was that I didn't learn from this mistake. But I, when we went through the private equity process in 2008 with the investment bank, that was an education for me. And when this came along, I thought, well, I can do that. I can do what that investment banker did. Um, I can handle these negotiations by myself, with my attorney or whatever. And I think I did okay, Dale, but now I would never do that. I would never ever do that. I would always have a professional um, help negotiate a transaction or an exit or whatever you want to call it, because um, you're at a disadvantage. I was at a disadvantage. I thought I was on level, but I was at a disadvantage. And um, I think I would have had a better financial outcome had I done that. But I am happy with it. I have no regrets about it. But now, knowing what I know now, especially, I definitely would, um, I would really recommend to people that, if you have a good business and an opportunity to sell comes along, you get the right advice, and not your God, please, not the attorney who did your will, and not, the accountant who does your taxes, but people who do M&A work, legal people and accounting people who do M&A work. That's what you need, in addition to an advisor, investment banker, or some other type of advisor who does M&A, who sells and
It,
buys and sells
it
companies.
was that the disadvantage you feel was that you just weren't experienced enough to deal with these guys who were basically. So you,
I, yeah, I think I mean, ultimately, I think I tipped my hand a little bit near the end, and that didn't the and that tipping of the hand, resulted in a price reduction that I should have seen. Like, I should have seen that coming. And if I had an intermediary and I talked to that intermediary, investment bank or whatever, about this tip of the hand, we would have told a different story. Not a not We just would have told the story differently, and my advisor would have done a better job than I did negotiating our way through that reduction. Either we wouldn't have had a reduction at all, or I feel it definitely would have been less.
yeah, and I know. So funny story for our exit of Corsica. We had gotten an unsolicited offer, and again, so I like talking to you and reading your story because I enjoy it. And but I remember we got an unsolicited offer that we were going to take from a company that was a platform company, and we were talking to a lawyer because you're right, like you got it. You need to work with people in this area because it's different. There's different types of accountants, different types of
Yeah,
lawyers. You
way
got to know
different.
that. So the guy doing your taxes is not your advisor on an M&A deal. Like you said, I agree with that, and that's solid advice. But we didn't know that, and we're working with the lawyer. We did go get a lawyer to help us look at this offer, and the lawyer goes, "Well, who's your broker?" And me and the CFO, or Larry, who was the president of the company that we acquired, now CFO, were like, "What's a broker?" And because we had no idea. Like, that's how naive we were, because we weren't looking to sell.
Yeah.
This just kind of came on us, and we did. And he goes, "Hey," and the lawyer thankfully stopped us and said, "Hey guys, time out. Why don't you go talk?" And he introduced us to a guy, and I think, to affirm what you say, it did wonders for us. It took us to a whole new level, because here we were about to take a deal, not looking at any other deals or anything. And the first lesson he told us is, because we wanted to validate the deal at that point. And he said, well, we only know this is a good deal. Only way we know if this is a good deal or not is if you go seek other deals, like go to market. And we did.
Right.
We went to market, and the rest was history. So yeah, you definitely need some good advisors. That's money well spent. You'll get it back in spades.
Yeah. And even if you decide, well, I don't want to do a broad market on my company, I don't want people to know we're for sale or any of that stuff. The advisor still knows who the buyers are. They know what the price ranges are. They know how to have the conversation, and they can bring in a small pool of people if that's all you're interested in. But they'll be the right people. They won't be the wrong people.
Right. Yeah. No. And I think it's great. And I think you're very fortunate to have had some exposure to that the first time to be more clear on what you wanted. And
Right.
so this was your first, did you end up starting another business after that?
Yeah. Yeah. Started another one, similar type business, so similar type waste business, but this time I instead of bootstrapping, I started with a private equity partner at the beginning. Um, so I was the operating partner, and I was able to put a number of companies together to form our platform, and then with the support of the private equity firm for the capital. Um, so it was a great way for me, having been through what I had been through, and with my experience, to leverage the experience that I had both on the acquisition side and on running, this kind of a business, um, without me having to, put all of my resources into it, or a good chunk of my resources into it, or do, all the day to day stuff that comes with being the president or CEO of a company. So I was able to um, attract a management team, and I was able to operate sort of as a chairman and an advisor.
Mm.
So it was a really good use of complementary use of skill sets and resources, Dale, to put this one together.
Yeah, no, I think that's awesome. So because I was curious about that. So you didn't go start anew. You came in with a PE group and helped. Was it the building of a new company, or did you guys do some acquisitions and kind of bring some things together?
Yeah, so we bought three companies in a short period of time, and we put them together to form the platform for this new company.
Right.
So yeah, and then we put systems in it, and we built out certain capabilities and some of the things that I thought we needed to do in order to grow and differentiate and all of those things. And yeah, so it that's how we did it. Yep,
Yeah, I love it. That's awesome. So you exited out of that after what was it, 3 years, and
that's
now
right.
is that where the podcast came about?
Oh no, I started the podcast around the same time that I was starting that adventure.
Is that
Actually,
right?
yeah, um, yeah. So 2018 or so. So I the podcast has just been. Oh, actually, after I sold my first business, I was looking for something creative to do, because I did like writing, and I thought, I started a blog at that time, and I was writing, and I thought, oh, this is pretty cool, and it was a good way for me to express some creativity. But after a while, well, actually, during that time, I started listening to podcasts, which I hadn't ever done before. So 2008, like I said, 18 or so. Um, and it occurred to me that, all this, I would work so hard to write a blog post, for example, and really nobody would read it. It was just, it was deflating, a little deflating. Um, but this podcasting thing, I thought, oh, it's like right up my alley, because you know, I'm one of those guys that knows a lot. I know a little about a lot of stuff, so I can swim in water with a lot of people, even if we're very very different of how we our business or how we grew up or whatever. Um, and I'm I'm a pretty good listener and question asker, so I thought, well, why not give that a try? Because the people I was listening to, I really liked it, but I also thought, oh, I could do that. Um,
back to E Myth.
yeah, it's like the plumber, right? Yeah. So,
Yeah.
so yeah, so I started podcasting, and I did that. I've done that, of course, continually since that time, and I
And
love it.
So who's it for, and what are you solving for in your podcast?
Well, so the short story is I'm trying to share stories of success. I want to dig deep into those stories. I want to unlock the clues that inspire and activate greatness in the people who are listening. And so that means that whether you are already a high performer and you just are always looking to get a little bit better from people that you respect, the podcast is for you. If you're, the kind of person like the plumber, for example, who is thinks that there could be an entrepreneur inside of them, but there's something in the way of that, whether it's confidence or money or whatever. You listen to the stories that I'm honored to share, and you'll see that so many of the people that you look at today and you say are successful were just like you at one point. So listen to what they have to say, because there's nothing innately special about them. They weren't gifted with success. They've um, they figured out how to get it,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what I want to share with people. I want to get that greatness quotient up in people. I want them to know that they can do more than they think they can.
Yeah, I love it, man. I love it. And how about the book? Who's the book for?
Well, it's funny because I wrote the book, Ownership: How Getting Selfish Got Me Unstuck. I wrote the book um, really for first and foremost, the idea was I just got to get this personal journey that I've had kind of out there, right? So that's kind of what I started with. But then, of course, who cares about that, right? Um, I had to figure out a way, and ultimately, I think I did, to figure out a way to sort of use my stories, the journey, the stories of my journey, but not to tell you like, here's what I did and here's what you should do, but really to use those stories to resonate a point. And since all of our stories are different, I could never, have the same story as someone who's reading it. But what I can have is a story that resonates with an experience in their life. Like you had mentioned to me, when you were first reading it, it sort of spoke to you. The exact story, of course, didn't speak to you, but the lesson of the story or the purpose of the story resonated. And my goal is to get um, entrepreneurs to go big. I want entrepreneurs to go big, meaning I feel like their responsibility is, well, if you're going to go down that road, you gotta think about it as going big, not like we keep using the plumber, but not like the plumber who's just starting a job for themselves and calling themselves an entrepreneur, a business owner. That's not what I believe entrepreneurism to be. I want people to go big, and when you go big, or whether you go small or whether you go big, you are going to have a lot of challenges along the way, and you're going to get to a point, most everyone, where you feel stuck, and like I did in this valley of uncertainty that I described. And when you feel stuck, I don't want you to revert back to, oh, I should go smaller, there'll be less problems, or maybe I should quit because I can't do it, or all of this head trash that you get going on inside of you. I want to encourage you to, one, that's normal, don't worry. Two, where you are is where you designed yourself to be. So you have the skill set to design yourself to be somewhere. And if it's a spot that you don't like right now, then the good news is you have the ability to design a future that you actually want and then start working towards it. And I think a lot of people give up on that, Dale, because they think, oh my gosh, it's just everything that happened to me just happened accidentally and I had no control over it. And here I am, and whose fault is it, and all this stuff. And I want them to look inside and say, I'm here because this is what I asked for, right? I may not have explicitly asked for certain things, but I asked for this because if I hadn't designed it this way, I wouldn't have gotten here. So I asked for that. Now, what do I need to ask for to go forward? So I want to help entrepreneurs go big and get unstuck and continue to make breakthroughs and make their company and themselves as big as they are capable of being.
Yeah, I love it because it's just you're fighting the good fight, right? You're getting out there and letting these folks know because you nailed it, right? We get in our heads and we think we're the problem and everyone else is better than us. And you're going through exactly what many before you have gone through, and know that, like you said, they've got nothing special over you. You can do it too. You just got to
Right.
find your way and navigate it. And what do you think, having been through a couple of businesses, obviously, the business that you started and then coming on to build a platform company after, but what do you think, like, what habits contribute most to your success?
Well, I'm a big habit person, so I'm thank you for asking that question. Um, so number one habit for me, and this is part of the getting selfish thing, is knowing what I want.
Mm.
So knowing what I want, knowing the property, the future property that I want to own, if you think about it that way, is is a great habit, because if I know that, then I can always, every day I can wake up thinking, okay, this is where I'm going, and I know why I want to get there, and these are the things that have to happen. So it gets me started the right way. It also makes it tremendously easy to communicate with other people and share the vision with other people, because I know where I want to be, and I can communicate that to them, and hopefully they want to help me get there, and not just for me, but by helping me get there, it's good for them, right? Everybody wants a future that's better than their past. And so that's number one habit. Number two habit is, um, and maybe this is cliche or whatever, but I don't stop, right? So I run into obstacles just like everybody else, and I get down just like everybody else, but I know where I'm going. I always start out and always get back to focusing on what needs to be done in order to get there. Um, so that's another habit. Number three is I I take care of myself. I still have some vices, like everybody, but I take care of myself, because if I'm not my best, how can I expect anybody around me to be at their best? So those are three habits that I prescribe to.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, as far as that's concerned, because I know we haven't talked probably enough about it in this podcast, but to me anyway, that, would you agree, like, the life of an entrepreneur is the life of a high performer, because you've got to show up every day, even to your habit number two, like, don't stop, like,
Right.
the calling to be a high performer. And how do you, like, keep the energy up? Like, it requires a lot of energy of us. We've got to get after it all day, and we've got whether you got a hard job or not, now you've got the weight of the responsibility of the ownership, the business, right? You take it home with you. How do you keep the energy up? How do you recharge?
Well, one way that I keep the energy up is I try not to be around anybody that willingly or willfully takes energy from me.
Mm.
Now, life and circumstances and things that I can't control can take energy from me, but man, I don't need to be around somebody that takes more of it just because that's who they are. So protecting my energy it's like super key. Um, so having a focus on where I want to go helps me. Actually taking steps towards it every day, right, helps me, because even if I don't get where I wanted to get, you know, it's easy. I could say, well, geez, I'm so bummed I didn't get where I wanted to get. Or I could say, hey, I didn't get where I wanted to get, but you know what? I got further. And then, so that makes me closer tomorrow to getting where I want to be. And then finally, I just do things that, whether it's exercise or reading or whatever I think preserves or enhances my energy. I try to do those things, because being an entrepreneur is like being like, I think of it sometimes like being, like when you go to Mount Rushmore and you see those beautiful, carvings of the presidents that took many, many years to do and all. Um, what they never show you, and you see this when you go there, but there's below is all the rock that they chipped away from these. It's all laying there at the bottom. And I think to myself, that's what being an entrepreneur is like, right? The whole world sometimes feels like it's against you, and it's chipping away at you to see who you really are. And sometimes we need people around us who take those rocks and glue them back on us, right? Because I can't afford to lose all that. So I don't know if that's a perfect image or not, but I think about that, right? An entrepreneur, you need to be around people who are refreshing your confidence all the time,
Mm.
not kissing your butt and not doing those types of things, but refreshing your confidence all the time, because confidence gives you energy, and you're off to the races.
Yeah, I agree. I really respected even your mention of Butch and how he gave that to you, because they're like the
Yeah,
wind in your sails, right? To have that support group behind you, just again putting that wind in your sails, you need it. Um, you, it helps a lot. Yeah, I don't know if it's great to have. I said you need it, and it's great to have. Maybe you don't need it or not, but man, it really propels you. Helps you on
well,
those valley of uncertainty days, right? When you
yeah,
got someone in your
for
corner going, "Hey, you've got this. I trust that you're going to figure this out."
right.
So
And the only people I think who don't need it, Dale, are people who don't get enough of it. Because once you get someone, boosting your confidence regularly, it feels great. I mean, there's not a better feeling in the world than someone that does that for you. What a gift, Now, could you do it without it? Maybe, sure. Okay. Say you can. You're not going to be happy doing it like you would, if somebody validated it with a little confidence boost.
yeah, 100%. So of all you've done, what are you most proud of so far?
Well, I think the thing I'm most proud of is that I'm still married to the woman I met in college and fell in love with, and 31 years later, we're still married. We have two kids who still seem to, at least halfway enjoy our company. They'll pick up the phone if I call. Um, so I feel like, and that's not in that's just, my wife. It has not been easy for her all along. Um, like a partner, we were talking about partners earlier. I just got super lucky with a spouse partner, because she got it when we, got into this. She was willing to do more than she probably should have had to do. And um I was very lucky, and we've been able to keep it going.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I would say 31 years.
Yes. Mhm.
Wow, that's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
No, you're right. I think having the rock of wife that supports you like that. I mean, that's another big thing I think in being an entrepreneur, starting a business, is the importance of understanding of your partner needing to be supportive, right? Because you've seen that too, I'm sure, where you've got someone that's trying to do what it takes to get a business going, because it takes a lot of you, it takes a lot of work, and you do need that supportive partner at home as well, in a big way. I mean, we were talking about like someone giving you
Yeah, in a huge way.
confidence in putting that wind in your sails, man. If you've got a partner, or like you said, those energy takers in your life, maybe it's not your spouse, but it's someone else just kind of always challenging. Why are you doing this? Why are you working so hard? You're never giving me time. Like, that's the complete opposite,
Hmm.
you know?
I try to back to that people thing. I try to surround myself with people, and only be around people who I call are winding up in life, not winding down in life. So I want people who are just as enthused about whatever they're doing as I am about what I'm doing, because there's magic there.
Yeah,
We can feed off one another, we can help one another, and we can give each other confidence and energy too. We speak
absolutely.
the same
Absolutely.
language.
Yeah. So what's next for you? So what are you working on now? What's got you excited?
Well, my so I've done a lot of startup and other investing, particularly after since I sold my first business, Dale. And so my mission now really is to I want to build a community that I have had some impact on. That's 1,000 entrepreneurs who have businesses that have at least $20 million of value, and then I want those 1,000 entrepreneurs to help 10 others each, do the same thing. And I think to
Mm.
myself, if I can come anywhere close to achieving that goal, the impact on entrepreneurs, the impact on uh, the people who join their teams, and the impact on the world will be amazing. And I don't know what else I could be doing that would have as big of an impact as that would have. So I'm committed to figuring out how to make that happen. I'm on the road. I'm nowhere close to 1,000 yet, but that's the road I'm on, and that's the road that I hope to be on for a long time.
That's awesome. And what better time than now to do that, right? I mean, you started in, what'd you say, 92? I
Yeah.
mean, and we talked about the banks. We did, that's pre-internet, right? Like, I
Oh
mean,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
in this day and age, I think that's why we're seeing so much, what seemingly seems like so much entrepreneurialism is the accessibility to do so much that it's so accessible now
Yeah.
to start up and get going, and you just got to put in the work.
Yeah, I mean, imagine Kickstarter or some of these other crowdfunding platforms. Um, like in 1992, if you took an ad out in the newspaper and you said, "Hey, I'm starting a business. Here's what it's going to be. I'll pre-sell you something if you send me money today." You wouldn't, but now people are like, "Oh, isn't that cool? Dale's starting this thing. He's got a Kickstarter campaign. I'll throw $10 into that for." Like, people are just willing to give money for in a way that I have never seen them be willing to give money, which is fantastic, as you said, for entrepreneurs. Fantastic
Yeah, I mean,
democratization of
absolutely.
funding. Yeah,
Yeah, and like I said, even just everything, the information age, the ability to communicate. You mentioned podcasts. Like, I really feel we're in an information age, but we're also in a knowledge age that like learning the lessons that you learn, like your platform and what you're doing there, right?
right.
How enabling that is, and again, more so than ever in a time in our history to have such a, a not like say a source of knowledge at our fingertips almost for free. It's
Yeah,
awesome. I mean,
it's
it's
pretty
just a great time to
amazing.
be alive.
Who
Yeah.
knew the microchip would do so much? Yeah.
No kidding. So, yeah, no, well, as we wrap up here, how can people find you, find the book, connect with you online?
Sure. Well, my podcast is How'd It Happen. You can find that, and that's HOW''D. It happened. You can find that on all the platforms. Check it out. Take a listen. Let me know what you think. My book is available on Amazon. It's called Owner Shift: How Getting Selfish Got Me Unstuck. My website is mikemalatesta.com. That's MALATESTA.com. And I'm active on LinkedIn. If you want to connect with me there or follow me there, feel free to do that.
Awesome. Yeah, Mike. No, it's been an honor to have you on. I'm excited to continue the conversation, and it's actually, like I told you, like if one of the books like started on a Saturday when you got time, because you're not going to want to put it down. That was my problem. I was like, man, I got stuff to do. Damn it, I got to put this. So great job on that, man. I'm excited to
Thank you.
get through it
Thank you.
and learn
Thank
more
you.
about your story. But yeah, Mike, thanks for coming on. I really appreciate you sharing your story and experience with us. A lot of great stuff, and thank you very much.
My pleasure. Been great getting to know you. Thanks for having me on your show, Dale.
Absolutely. Thanks, Mike.